So welcome to ProductTank Richmond. I'm going to go a little bit over like what we do and who we are, just to get started. But just wanted to remind everyone that this is being recorded. We'll have the video available for everyone to access that RSVP for the event. So just if you, for some reason, do not like to be filmed, just wanted to remind you and let you know that that is happening in this call. Cool. So what is Mind the Product, right? Mind the Product is the world's largest community of passionate product people. We are typically run by product people for product people, and we're united by a mission to push our craft forward together. If you guys have ever had the chance to attend other Mind the Product events, they are pretty awesome. But one of the things that Mind the Product does that is really special is ProductTank. And ProductTank is what we're at today. ProductTank is a meetup that brings together the local product community in a specific city. So it could be product managers, designers, developers, thinkers, whoever you think will be a good fit for these types of presentations is absolutely welcome to join and share this experience. So just in terms of just like ProductTank, absolutely. We love ProductTank. We're here for it every single month. And if you guys are on our meetup channel, you'll see how often we're posting events. And I would recommend also going on to mindtheproduct.com and check out other ProductTank events happening across the country and across the world. So there's plenty of good ones. We did want to shout out to our next event coming up. It is going to be on September 22nd, and we are calling it Communication Plus Code. It's how strategists and technicians can effectively work together. And this is being hosted with our guest speaker, Scott Ford from Corgi Bytes. So super excited about that. The meetup will be available soon, so you can go ahead and get signed up and put it on your calendar. Another quick thing that we have started doing for ProductTank Richmond is sending out a wrap-up email. Essentially what this is going to give a quick summary of this presentation, talking about the big points that were made, as well as any important resources that might come up. So the actual link to the video, as well as if Ashley mentions some really cool resources, they'll all be available in this email. So keep an eye out for tomorrow or Friday. We'll send out this email to you guys as well. Just a reminder, if you would like to get involved in ProductTank Richmond, if you think you have a really good speaker, want to be a speaker yourself, or just want to shout out some ProductTank jobs, feel free to reach out to Travis or Jessica. They're our leads on the ProductTank Richmond team, and they are awesome. They'll also just give you awesome advice if you need that too. Cool. So I wanted to shout out today, there is definitely some career jobs available popping up in the Richmond area. Travis, I don't give a good face. There is definitely some good jobs popping up in Richmond. And that's actually because of job trends are actually increasing, which is just so funny that we have an awesome sponsor today, Snag, because they just posted this today. If you've gotten a chance to check it out, it's pretty awesome. This was specifically talking about hourly jobs, but I think it speaks to how the career market, the job market is on the rise once again. So I would definitely start checking out if you're looking, they are available. That being said, we do have jobs that we know of. We have jobs at Capital One in product management. Hatch is looking for a senior designer. CarMax is always looking for product people. And then we also have West Creek and Trilogy Mentors are looking for jobs as well right now, or looking for employees, I guess. They got the jobs. They need you. So if you are interested in any of those, we will have links out to those in the chat. And also throughout this presentation, if you are someone that is on a product team that does have a job available, go ahead and throw it in the chat, and we'll try to collect those and make sure that we have those for reference for everyone. Awesome. So as I said, we have an awesome sponsor this week or this month, It's Snag, and we also have Lee Wilson available on the call, and he's going to give a little bit of an overview of how product is at Snagajob right now.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Sarah. Really excited to talk to you all. My name is Lee Wilson. I'm the mobile app product manager at Snagajob, and just going to give like a little background on myself, and then also what it's like to do product at Snagajob, especially right now. I think everybody's kind of lives and jobs are changing with COVID, or have changed pretty dramatically, and our organization is no different. So I actually started out at Snagajob 2 years ago as an intern. Actually, that's where I first met Sarah. She was in the Hustle office doing some paperwork, I believe, and we started talking about product a little bit as well. But I was working there for about 6 months or so, and went on a little hiatus. And when I came back, they wanted to hire me back again as the product manager for the mobile app team. And I've really had a lot of great mentors and leaders to work with here at Snagajob, who have kind of helped me grow in that time period. And so I couldn't be like more thankful for them for that. And then on top of that, Snagajob has a really great culture for product. This is our 20th anniversary year. And so everybody's Slack icons currently are, pictures of them 20 years ago. So this photo of me is from 2000. And it's cool to have those little things that you can kind of continue to do even if you're not seeing each other kind of day to day. I might have aged a little bit, but I still wear shirts exactly like that, and I probably act the same. To talk a little bit about product at Snagajob, I think especially this year I've seen a lot of really amazing things come out of our group. We out of necessity have really increased our product velocity. You guys saw the chart that Sarah just showed. When COVID hit, we saw a dramatic tank in job postings and people really looking for job opportunities. So for us, it was really important to put out new and different ways to hire very quickly. And so within the course of a quarter, I think right around June 1st, we put out a new way to kind of interview, which is hiring events. Basically we're giving hourly job workers the ability to go direct to interview. So no worrying about applying, just schedule an interview directly with an employer. And to see something like that go from kind of ideation in a time of crisis to, something that we have right now, it's still in the beginning phases of about 10 or so users. But starting to grow that a lot more. To see that happen all within the course of a quarter has been really amazing. And so it's been a lot of fun to kind of work on those sort of projects. And I'm really excited to see what we can continue to do the rest of the year. I think we do have one UX designer role out there. So if anybody knows someone, I'll put it in the chat. Definitely apply. I'd be happy to see some of you join us.
Thank you so much, Lee. I think it's a perfect opportunity for Snag to be a partner this month because we will be talking about professional development. And one of the things I remember working in the Snag office was that like one of the first questions they always asked you was, what was your first job? And it's always responds, there's always some good responses. Like my first job was, I think it was being a soccer referee for my local league. So it was interesting because you have to deal with angry parents all the time, and that's always fun. But it's just a good question to think about, and ask your friends, what was your first job, and think about where you are now. So
I taught tennis to little kids. That was my first job.
Oh yeah. Oh goodness. So awesome. So we're going to go ahead and jump in today's main speaker. And it is Ashley Shoval. Ashley has worked in the product industry, but also more personally, she has also been a mentor to me while she worked at VCU Advertising in our undergrad program. And she's made the transition herself into product, which I think is why it's going to be very interesting to hear her perspective on how you do professional development in product when she herself is going through that process as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ashley.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Thanks for such a great intro. So yeah, and with Lee's commentary, today's talk is very apropos. So let me see if I can do this properly the first time and share my screen. Okay, is everybody seeing a slide with the ocean? Okay, and not my speaker notes.
You're good.
Okay, great. Okay, so welcome to Product U, and thanks so much for having me. As Sarah said, I am what I call myself a polymath. So I've changed careers several times. So I've gone from advertising to academia, and just to keep it with the A's, I'll say agility. It's the product world, the tech world. And this is a presentation I've been developing over all that period of time. So I hope you'll enjoy it. But let me take a second before we get started and just talk about some logistics. So Jessica Allison will be coordinating the polling. Thanks, Jessica. And Sarah will be the chat tender. So I'll have a few specific chat prompts sprinkled in, but please feel free to comment throughout. And then there'll also be time for Q&A at the end. So let's get started. I wanted to talk about this topic for several reasons. As Lee mentioned, lots of us are looking for jobs today. I actually was up until this week. I just started working with Veracity as a contractor, and I'll be helping out with an assignment with the Department of Veterans Affairs, helping to improve the lives of veterans, which is a great cause that I'm really excited about. But two, we're all working differently now, and we need to learn, adjust, and rethink our roles a little bit. And then three, working remotely means that we could all benefit from beefing up our virtual presence, or our virtual power of influence, since we can't stop by our coworkers' desks anymore. So it's my hope that all of the tools and techniques that we'll talk about today might help you better define and project your personal strengths. Okay, so why are we here? My goal is for you to learn something useful to apply to your professional development, go easy and reduce anxiety in an unusual job market, and then get some ideas about how to jumpstart your efforts, and then finally pay it forward with a virtual networking exercise in the end. So we'll be talking about why Product U matters today more than ever. I'll show you how a dual-track Agile approach works perfectly for professional development. I'll take you through the design thinking framework using some exercises that you actually won't have time to complete here today, but you can do later. And we will then do the virtual networking exercise to kickstart your discovery and leave you with a sample backlog to begin exploring. And then finally, if you're interested in getting a copy of the deck, you can go to my website, which is ashleyshoval.com. Click on the Product U page, fill out the short form, and then I can send it to you so that you can go through it more thoughtfully in your own time. And I'm also available to help coach you through it if you like. Okay, so someone really smart once told me that you should never be more than 2 weeks away from your next job. Now, this doesn't mean that you should always have one foot out the door. Maybe things are great, maybe not. It just means that you should always have your eye on the horizon and be thinking of what comes next. And it always makes sense to continue learning and improving skills. You stand to benefit from it as well as your company. And we're all familiar with 2-week increments, aren't we? So why is it helpful to think about yourself as a product? Why does that matter? So if you look at the data, 43% of millennials plan to leave their current job within 2 years. 58% plan to change jobs in the next year for learning and growth opportunities or better work-life balance. And 89% said that they would leave immediately for the right company or role. So what this data suggests is that change should be the expectation for both employer and employee. For employees, your future is malleable, learning never stops, and your network is the key to unlocking opportunity. For employers, if you want to attract the best talent, then you should show, not tell, that you're a place where learning and development and a willingness to experiment with new ideas is a priority. So we all know that agility requires sea legs, right? And what I mean by that is an ability to adapt quickly. But add to that a pandemic, and we might be feeling a little seasick at this point. So don't take on too much. But you're all working in agile environments that value continuous learning and improvement, right? So if you find a way to embrace change, you'll not only serve yourself, but your organization better. But this is not meant to make you feel even more anxious. Today, I'll show you how you can do this in a way that is fun and doesn't feel like work. Excuse me. So Jessica, here's our first poll. It's time for a little participation. This is about who is responsible for your L&D. So go ahead and vote. L&D, by L&D, I mean learning and development. I'll give you a few seconds to complete that. Everybody should see a prompt on their screen. All right. Okay. Fantastic. So most of you said you, a few of you said all of the above, and then a couple of people voted on your supervisor and your department head. So the correct answer is you. So long ago, right, in a galaxy far, far away, personal learning and development plans were co-created by you, your supervisor, and maybe even HR, but not so much anymore. Why? Because budgets have been cut and consequently training programs. Plus, the pace of tech is so fast, a lot of it would be outdated very quickly anyway. So it's really up to you. But the good news is that there are so many free resources out there now. There's so much great content online, from podcasts and webinars to YouTube and even free college classes. The toughest part really is filtering good from mediocre. And I'll show you how to do that today. So dual track, how many of you have heard of this term? I'm going to assume that since we're in the product group, it's a lot of you. I can't see everybody's hands, but this is one of my favorite graphics to show dual track agile. In any given sprint, sometimes there will be more discovery or learning, sometimes more delivery, but they're all continuously happening. And all of us can embrace the goal of continuous improvement, right? It's not just, but it's not just for the work we do with our teams, it's for ourselves too. If you learn and develop new skills, doesn't that serve your team and your company? And then in this way, your personal learning and development plan is dual track agile. Pretending that you're a product on a course for continuous improvement is an easy mental parallel. Think of it as a micro business. You're the founder, you own it, you want to learn, develop your skills, establish market fit, and position yourself for advancement. So invest in yourself. And for employers, investing in your workers creates the principle of reciprocity. If you invest in them, they will return the favor. So as we move through the presentation, I'll begin with discovery using the Stanford D School's design thinking framework, and then talk about delivery or how to implement your learning. Okay, so here it is. This is the Stanford Design School's design thinking framework. Many of you do this at work, but why not apply this process on ourselves? Shouldn't we be working on our own professional development while working on the companies? Isn't that dual track? Or are they competing strategies, meaning do they serve the same purpose or not? So I'm going to pause for a little bit and ask you to put in the chat prompt, what do you think? And then while you're thinking, I'll run through a couple of scenarios for you. So scenario one, you notice on your team that there is a need for accessibility expertise. So why not learn it? You could call in an expert, and then you could build it into the team's process instead of leaving it as an afterthought. And that way your learning has enhanced your team, right? Scenario 2, you notice that your organization places a high value on product owner skills, but you're not in line to receive formal training. But you could do it anyway, right? You could make connections, you could read, you could take a free class, you could find out if you want to learn more or not. And then scenario 3, you have job envy with a friend in another industry entirely. But you could go explore. The worst case scenario is you learn it's not for you. The best case scenario is that you pick up new skills and connections and make a switch to something more suited, and your role is backfilled with someone new who is more suited as well. In every scenario, both you and the company will benefit. So it's a win-win. So dual track shows up as learning for the team, upskilling yourself, or finding better fit altogether. So now I'm going to show you some tricks on how to get started with discovery. Okay, so the first step in design thinking is to empathize or understand the user, which in this case is you. So you would think this is easy, and actually it's not. I can tell you from experience, having switched careers a few times, it's really hard to be objective about yourself. It's also hard to assess your situation without some context. So it's good to enlist friends, family, and coworkers to help you be more objective. And this is where secondary research can help a lot. So begin by reading and reflecting in a journal. You can use a digital app or an analog journal. I personally love, it's called Day One, because I use it for like my own personal daily stand-ups, and also it'll ping me and say, you know, a year ago you wrote this, and so I can track my progress or regression. So those are visible too. And so here's some other books that I've read recently. One is by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits. It's great. It's all about the British racing team and how they went from failing every race to winning every race, just through tiny changes. It's really a remarkable story. A lot of you have probably heard of Jeff Gotthelf's book, Forever Employable. That's a good one. This book, The How of Happiness, is what Laurie Santos, she's a professor at Yale, it's what she based her class on, her course. It's called, I think it's called How to Be Happy. And it is, apparently it is the most popular college class ever. And it's spawned all kinds of material. So one thing I've learned is that happiness and success is not something that happens to you. It's something that you make. So go ahead and drop in the chat. What are some of your faves? I would love for us to share some books or resources that we've used that have inspired us in terms of thinking about professional development. And remember, this is secondary research. So you always want to start there, learn what others have learned. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay, another poll. Jessica, can you assist? This is about how are you feeling today? You might have a new job or a new role with lots of new energy. This is the positive side on the top, and then sort of neutral in the middle, and then a little bit more negative on the end. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that.
I just wanted to shout out that we're getting a ton of really good recommendations on books. So that's
awesome. I hope, yeah, we can share those with everybody. I can't wait to see. All right. Excited, eager to learn. That wins. Okay. I can see there's pretty much, apart from that, it's pretty much an even spread, which I kind of expected. So I want to pause for a little bit on the neutral zone, specifically Groundhog's Day. Because if you're positive, if you're feeling positive, you're engaged, you're probably learning, things are good. If you're in the negative zone, you are recognizing how you feel, and you might be looking to make a change actively, and that's good too. But Groundhog's Day, in my opinion, represents the greatest risk. Similar to companies that stop innovating and go on autopilot, you can risk stalling out your career. So if you're in that space, if you're just waking up in the morning, going through the motions, and then going to sleep at night, and then waking up and doing it all over again, and not really feeling one way or the other, pay attention to that, because you're also probably not learning, and you're probably not adjusting or changing anything for the better. But whatever you're feeling, accept it. Lots of things are beyond our control. But hopefully I can get you to think about what to do with this energy, whether negative or positive. And the good news is that, just as with agility, you can consistently make small adjustments over a period of time to achieve drastic improvements, just like small batch. You might be at the right place in the wrong role, or the right role in the wrong place, or you may be at the right place in the right role, but not know how to advance. The important thing is to not be reactionary. Nothing is forever. Start small, learn more. So you don't have to change the channel, but you might just adjust the knobs a little bit. All right, so now we're getting into the fun stuff. I'm going to start running through a series of exercises to help you structure your thinking and become more self-aware. And again, you can take notes, but you can also, I'll also provide the deck so that you can use these templates to do the exercises on your own. So this one is called Red, Yellow, Green, and it's meant to help you reflect productively on past roles, because if you want to plot a course to the future, it helps to learn from the past. For this one, you would think of the top 3 most influential roles you've had and put them in the white box. And then in the green box, you'll write what you loved most about that role. And then in the yellow, what you were lukewarm about. And in the end, what zapped your energy. So the key is to go beyond the obvious. I put ladders in the boxes to get you to ladder up to what really made you shine, or even dread work, or make the mess stuff better. So it might be a 2-step process. So for example, I'll just take you quickly through mine. I put in there, my job as a VCU professor, the various roles in advertising that I've had. I've worked in just about every department. And then even a job that I had when I was first starting. This was my first job, and I got lucky. I worked for the Ritz-Carlton hotel company back before they were bought by Marriott, and they were amazing. That was actually, and this goes in the green box, that was actually where I learned what customer experience really meant. So that was a company that won consistently Malcolm Baldrige awards every single year for the highest level of customer experience. Every single thing about that company was oriented towards that. Advertising, obviously, creativity, power of ideas. And then at VCU, I loved the autonomy of that role and being able to adjust in the moment and individualize the instruction depending on the student. But also think about other practicalities. Do you want flex time? Do you want to work from home, or do you want to be in an office? What size organization works best for you? When you consider future options, you'll come back to this, but what sort of interactions do you want to have with leadership? What kind of benefits? What level of formality? Do you like the corporate atmosphere, or something a little less formal? What does fun look like on the job for you? How do you want to incorporate giving back? So just a short aside, I've hired people in the past who created initiatives for giving back to causes that they care about. In fact, 2 former students did this within the first year or 2 on the job. So sometimes you can influence what you want, even if it's not already there. Next, what's this one? Oh, it skipped ahead. Let me go back. Okay. So this one, so with this one, we're going to zoom in a bit. This one is called a cognitive map. It's an exercise meant to help you take a deeper dive by adding more context and detail. You can use images, quotes, emojis to communicate what you accomplished, what you learned, what you overcame, and what your triggers were. So I populated this. I'll just take you through it quickly as an example for mine. The first visual over on the left is I did a junior year abroad when I was in college, and so I traveled a lot, and that's really where I learned the value of different cultures and diversity and being a minority. So being an American going to school in another country was an experience that changed my life completely. And then next, I hinted a little bit about what it was like to work at the Ritz-Carlton and understand the customer experience and advertising, just living in the world of ideas, which then led me to start my own photography company in New York. That was super fun and successful all up until the iPhone came out, and then it got a little tricky. But then I started with another friend. I started a sparkling water company with a drink with a hint of juice. This was before the days of LaCroix. And then next, the org chart is meant to show that I went back to an ad agency and learned how to build a digital team and how to structure that team. And then at VCU, I got over my fear of public speaking, which I'm still working on today. And then lastly, tech world. So this is fun to just kind of help you crystallize your experience and major life events in a way that you can quickly reference. Here's another one. So this is it's great to keep track of your philosophy, right? Like we all love, we all have our favorite quotes, but it's important to sum up what you've learned on your journey so far and what you live by. So ultimately, the goal is to find a place whose culture mirrors your personal value system, at least somewhat. You want to work somewhere where there is some symbiosis in that. So this will help you ground yourself in what's most important. So here are some of my favorites. I'll just take you through quickly the one on the left. So we is greater than I. These are just things that I've collected and learned over the years. We is greater than I. Ideas are bigger than egos. Questions are larger than statements. So in other words, like what you don't know is maybe more important than what you already think you know. But then ultimately, that next icon there is a plane. Ultimately, you have to land the plane in something, with some kind of concrete value delivered. And then the next line with the card icons, the club and the spade and the diamond and the heart, that's really just about diversity. So different shapes, sizes are greater than one. Creativity is a muscle that needs to be developed and exercised by being fit and being mindful. So there's my other two little emojis. And then lastly, an attitude of gratitude. So what are some of your favorites? What are some of your favorite quotes or thoughts, or what do you live by? Throw them in the chat. We'd love to collect those too. All right, so define is the next stage of design thinking, but notice that where empathy stops and define begins is pretty seamless. So that's normal. This one you'll probably recognize, being that you're in the product world. So probably heard a lot about HBT. This exercise gets you to think about how your skills stack up against each category. So where are you strong or weak, and who can you pair with to complement your skills? So for me, I'm heavy in human-centered design, a little bit lighter in business. I'm really crap at accounting and finance, and I'm pretty light on tech. The super technical stuff for sure. I know, so with that, I know that I need to find partners who I can use as a reference or help explain things to me in terms that I can understand. Do I need to take a class? Probably, but I can't be an expert in everything, and that's okay. That's why we work in teams. So that's a good thing to sort of help tease out where you're strong and where you're weak. All right, I love this one because this is what brought me to you guys here today. So this is called Tomorrow's Presentation, and it can help you define your experience and expertise and interest into one salient slide. So the way to think about it is this: if you had to give a presentation tomorrow, what would you talk about? So hint, once you figure this out, then you could build a concept test in the form of an abstract and submit it to ProductTank or some other meetup or a conference, and run it by some trusted sources first if you like. In the interest of testing and learn, I ran this by lots of people many times, Sarah being one of them, and every time I did, they helped make it better. So yeah, I'm doing mine right now. So at this point, after doing these exercises, you should be getting a sense of where you've been and what you might be striving for. So now it's time to zoom back out and think big, pie in the sky, and ideate. So this is not the time to think about constraints like what you've always done or what you studied in college or what people expect of you. Remember, people often do something unrelated to their major, and we switch careers on average 5 to 7 times. And I am the poster child for that. So this is a vision board. And I have to give a shout out to my friend Heidi Mulligan Walker, who I think is on the call. This was really her idea that she was telling me about, and she's a fantastic HR person that used to work for Bloomberg. But this is another great way to, again, kind of define and crystallize your thoughts and experiences and beliefs. But so using images, quotes, and drawings, this is meant to get you to think more broadly about your interests. So it's probably a good time to remind you now of some cool tech that would make this easier. So you can do this analog style, draw and that kind of thing always, but I find that copying these visuals into a Google Jamboard or a Miro board makes it a lot more fun and easier too, and you can also share. So just taking you through mine a little bit. When someone asks you about your work, what are you most excited to share? So for me, it's I'm part of an awesome team. I'm always bragging about my teammates. It's everything to me. In fact, I really believe that I could probably go and dig ditches if I had a great team. And then who do I admire professionally? Well, anyone who knows me knows that I think that Beyonce is the queen. We were just playing her earlier. I love her. I think she's she's probably one of the most talented artists out there. And she'll go down in history as that with everything that she's done and how she's pushed the conversation forward. And then of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she's everybody's hero in my book. What am I drawn to? I have a picture of Einstein, and he says that, I don't know if you can read that, but it says, creativity is intelligence having fun. And I love that, because I think that's so true. And then what do I want to learn next? I want to learn how to build better process flows, and make them more intuitive and more fun to read instead of scary. So again, let's go back to the chat. When someone asks you about work, what are you most excited to share? Or if anybody wants to answer the question, who do you admire professionally? That would be a good one. It can be somebody you work with. It could be somebody in a completely different field, because you can draw parallels from virtually anything. Okay, good. I will proceed. So next up, prototyping. Prototypes can go from lo-fi to hi-fi depending on how far along you are in your process. So next I'll show you some ideas of what some of your prototypes could look like. This one's fun. Dream jobs. Here you would do some LinkedIn and Indeed or Snag job title searches. The goal is to find some jobs that get your adrenaline pumping, mash them up and record them here. So I put Spotify because I love music, and I think they make such a great product, and I use it every single day. That would be so cool to work there. And then Tesla, of course. I actually just recently test drove a Tesla, and I fell madly in love, I have to say. That's an experience that I've not had ever. And then lastly, I have a cartoon of myself because one of my goals is to be in business for myself again. And actually that kind of came true this week. So I'm now an independent contractor, and that's all good. So hopefully you see the progression that you've put together a vision for your career. And now you can begin to build some prototypes based not on just what you can do, but what you would be so excited about, you would jump out of bed every morning looking forward to doing. Okay, and you might consider concept testing that prototype with some trusted advisors. So setting up a personal board of advisors sounds very formal, but this is how you set up a continuous learning community of practice, right? So find people that are motivated in their careers, make a pact to keep each other focused on moving forward. I have one, we meet every Sunday for breakfast, and it's been indispensable. They have helped me with everything from professional advice to personal parenting, everything in between. So an example of a way that you might use your board of advisors is that you're thinking of switching roles at your company. You might share an ideal description with your board and ask their opinion on your strengths and weaknesses related to the role, or who else they know that does something similar that you could talk to learn more. Or maybe if they could even make an introduction for you. And then knowing what you know now, it helps to think about who you can go to in order to learn more. So, but before you do, take 10 minutes to think of your questions beforehand. 10 minutes of prep can make the difference between an interview that falls flat and a highly engaging one. So remember, interesting questions get insightful answers. And I'd love to hear in the chat, again, what are some really good questions that you've either asked or been asked in the past?
I'm not seeing anything come in yet, but I do think this is such an interesting question, especially like if you're going for job interviews, like having that go-to question to ask people as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Sarah. Every time I do an interview, whether it's a formal job interview or even just getting to know someone in a field, I come prepared with a couple of questions, and I find that it just helps focus the conversation. And usually I'm doing a little bit of Googling beforehand, a little bit of research to prepare, looking them up on LinkedIn, knowing or becoming familiar with their background so that it looks like I'm interested and that I've done my homework.
So we're getting some good ones. We've got, what are you interested in right now? I think that would spark some good conversations around books or podcasts, things like that. We have one from Kelly that says, define success. That's a loaded question.
That's a good one. Yeah,
but it's so good. Juan asks, a great one for PMs is, how are product decisions made at this particular company? I think that's interesting. There's so many popping in. I'm not going to say them all, but there's definitely some good ones coming through.
That's always a good one. How are decisions made? It's a really good one. One that I was asked recently, I thought was really good. Even the way that it was phrased, he said, what was the last thing that you geeked out on? And at first I was kind of like, I said, lots of things. But I thought that was a really good one because it showed that you are a lifelong learner and that you're engaged with the world around you and always open to new things. So I thought that was a great question too.
Love that.
Here's another prototype, the inspiration tank. So cultivate a list of sources of inspiration and go to the tank regularly and ask your colleagues and friends for theirs. So I'd love to hear about some of yours in the chat. I really like Medium. I probably read Medium every day because you can find anything and everything. And it's written by just, average people. It's not written by professional writers. So you get all kinds of interesting content. Jared Spool, for those of you that are in UX, he does a Leaders of Awesomeness. It's lots of things. Right now, they're actually running a free week-long webinar for an hour a day, which is super cool, and you can learn a lot from him. I put in there a couple of podcasts, even Madam Secretary. It's an old show, but it's Taylor Leone, and I love that she commands such a presence when she walks in the room, and she's so measured and strategic. I just find that, like, I find myself wanting to copy her sometimes. So keep a list of your sources of inspiration and ask other people, not just what you watched on Netflix last week, but where do you go to learn things and get that boost of energy that you need. All right, so testing. My favorite form of testing is concept testing. I love concept tests because you don't have to be right, you just need to be curious. So now we're going to do one. I'm testing an idea to improve virtual networking. So networking can be difficult even when the meetup is in person. But even more so when it's virtual. So let's see if we can make some magic happen. So Jessica is going to, in a little bit, Jessica's going to send you to your breakout rooms, and we're going to do a short little exercise. So you're probably going to wind up in a room with hopefully less than 10 people, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6. And each of you are going to go around the room and introduce yourself. You'll say your first name, where you work, and then you'll fill in the blanks on 2 sentences. And the sentences are, at work, I'm pretty good at blank. And then, and what I'd like to learn next is blank. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do that. And then you're going to partner up and commit to connect on LinkedIn, hopefully today or soon, and ask and answer one question. But before she sends us to the rooms, in the interest of diversity, please don't partner with someone that you already know or someone that's similar to you. Partner with someone who may know something about what you'd like to learn next, or someone who shared something that was meaningful to you. So again, everybody must pair up with at least one other person, share LinkedIn connections, and promise to reach out, ask, and answer one question. So I think we're ready, Jessica, whenever you are.
All right, Ashley, everyone's back. We'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you. Just a couple more slides. Excuse me. When I do all this talking, when I do too much talking, this is what I get. So, okay, so moving forward. So I'm glad to hear that that was a good experience. It sounds like my test worked. And we all will have a bunch of new friends, new professional friends. So that's great. So now what you're looking at, this is a discovery backlog that I put together. It's just a sample one. You can fill yours with whatever you want, but you'll see some of the ideas that we talked about earlier, kind of reminiscent here. But it's all meant to enhance your learning and get you to experiment and test some assumptions. So I think I see where I put gather a board of advisors up there, have the Zoom lunch with 5 people you admire, not necessarily all at the same time, though you could go back to your ProductTank group, take some free classes, research conferences to attend, or even publish an article on Medium. So there's a bunch of different ideas, and I'd love to hear what else might you add? What else have the rest of you done in terms of your own professional development? Do you have any other ideas to share with the group that you found useful that you'd like to pass on? I'd love to hear your thoughts. While you're thinking about that, I'll move on here. So remember to think small. 1 degree off for a plane means that after traveling just 60 miles, it's already 1 mile off target. So the idea for your career development is to try and make that a good thing. And I'm sharing that to illustrate once again that tiny changes over time lead to major shifts. So, paying attention to your professional development and doing something every week, even if it's an hour a week, eventually will pay off in a big way. And by maintaining self-awareness and being deliberate about your career choices, and they are choices, it can mean a difference of not only staying in the positive and the productive frame of mind that we talked about earlier, but also always being 2 weeks away from your next job. So work as hard at investing in your own innovation as you do for your company, and there'll be big payoffs all around. All right, and then here's our last poll. How much clarity do you have about a path forward? 1 through 5. 1 being super clear, excited to learn. Okay, this could be interesting, all the way to unclear and stuck. Go ahead and vote. All right. So it looks like for the most part, this could be interesting. We got a little bit of inspired and stuck. So for those of you that are excited, great. For those of you who feel stuck, hit me up. So I hinted at this before that, when I taught at VCU, I taught user experience design and art direction and copywriting and strategy. And the students were really fantastic at their craft, but where they sort of became deer in the headlights is when I asked them, what comes next? What kind of job do you want? And they didn't know. And so using exercises like this got them to unlock some of their own insights and their thoughts, and then they could develop a plan to move forward. So for all of you, you can go to my Product You landing page and send me an email, and I can send you the deck so that you can have this to work through on your own. And if you need some help, we can do that too. So that is my Chihuahua in the background. I apologize. And don't leave your career up to too much chance. Do you guys remember those, what are they called? The paper fortune tellers? I used to love those and make those. Really fun in elementary school, not so much when it comes to switching careers. So with that, I'm finished talking, and I'd like to open it up to the rest of you for any questions or comments or feedback from me to improve this talk, really anything.
I have a
Or
question.
Sarah, if you want to comment on the chat. Sorry.
Yeah, so what I was gonna say is if you have a question, let's just throw it in the chat because we've still got 60 people on this call, so it might get a little crazy. So just throw it in the chat. And while we're taking questions, there's this link that keeps getting thrown in the chat. That is our product survey. So if you
did you find out about?
Sorry, yeah. If you like love ProductTank and you want to give us feedback, we'd really appreciate it. The survey will take like 2 minutes tops. And it kind of helps us figure out what's going to be next for ProductTank Richmond. So,
or if you think it's a total waste of time, you can tell us that as well. You don't need only good feedback.
Was terrible. No, we follow a product mindset and really do. We take that feedback pretty seriously, and we will adjust accordingly. So if you have any feedback at all, we really appreciate it. Okay, Travis, someone says your baby is adorable. Your baby is adorable. I agree. We do have a question coming in from Arlise. She said, what is the best way to transition into product management from the Agile world? Which is interesting because you're kind of in that spot.
That's a great question, and one that I've heard a lot, and I've heard just as many answers to that question as there are people that ask it. And I'll throw this one out to some of you product management experts. What kind of feedback or what kind of advice do you have about making that transition?
So for me, because I went from a project management to a product management role, which is pretty similar. So you come with a lot of technical background on how to run a team, and then you're lacking the ability to think about users and think about roadmaps. So that's what I invested a lot of time in, is focusing on that side and the design, if that is something that you have not gotten the chance to do yet.
I'll chime in. I have an Agile and an Agile transformation background. That's actually how Travis and I met each other, and moved into product as an organization in kind of that capacity. There's a really cool role called delivery management that helps support product teams. And it was, for me, a great way to get exposure into what is this thing called product, and then just start reading and absorbing and watching. So happy to kind of talk about that journey. Also just share the things that I read and listened to and absorbed, if that's a path that works for you.
Does anybody else have any ideas? Anything that's unlocked some advancement for them? Because this is one that I consistently hear all the time, and it's hard. It's easier. I think the best way to approach it is to share the stories like you guys just did, and everybody seems to have a different story. So I'd love to, if anybody has another story, I'd love for you to chime in.
Yeah, we can throw, if anyone wants to speak up on that, they can throw it in the chat, and we can let them know that they can speak. Marcus Masick has a question. What exercises or practices would you recommend for someone wanting to have a conversation with their direct manager in negotiating a promotion? And he says this because he's a millennial, and this is the first time he's ever had to ask for a promotion. So that's a good point.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a great one. Negotiating a promotion. I will say this from that's a good one to think about, developing an exercise. So in terms of designing that one, coming up with going back to your, I forget which board it is, your cognitive map. That's the one where it had the blue and had all the 8 different squares. When you go back and you think of your accomplishments, and the things that you've overcome, it might be helpful to put some detail around that so that you are armed with your strengths and some storytelling when you go and have that conversation. And I'll also say this, anytime that you can quantify your accomplishment, I think that's huge, because then your argument or your negotiations become about real data and not just opinion. So if you find yourself saying things like, I think I'm really good at X, it might be a stronger argument to say, you know, the people on my team all voted me top performer in this area, and I helped increase downloads by, you know, my team helped increase downloads of the app by 25% or something like that. And similar to the way that you do for a resume, you know, quantifying what your impact is, I think is always good. Also, going online and looking at what the salary range is for the promotion that you want, and being armed with that information, knowing that you kind of want to land at least hopefully in the middle of that range. It gives you some parameters to think about what specifically to ask for instead of going in blind. Well, first of all, I think it's great that you even asked the question, because a lot of times people will wait to be told that they've been given a promotion instead of asking for one. And I do think that you need to advocate for yourself. I think that helps tremendously. And having a solid case, almost like a business case, like you do at work, it makes you look smart and put together. And it's really hard to argue with, isn't it? Anybody else have any other recommendations?
Yeah, we actually did get one. There's so many chats coming in. Where'd it go? David said that you can do a why I deserve a raise list. I love that. And then you list off all your accomplishments. And one thing that I did last year was I put it on a timeline. Like, my actual growth from January to December is like, you know, I ran my first sprint, and then like 2 months later it's like we had our first like SEV event, which is like when the whole app blows up, you know, like, and we put like the progress on a map, on a timeline. But that's awesome. I think those are really good piece of advice.
Yeah, that's great. And somebody else said the hardest part is asking. I think that's absolutely true. There can be a lot of fear around that. I also think that most organizations are pretty good about promoting on a regular timeline, though most, you know, a lot aren't. In academia, you will not get promoted or a raise until you sadly get a job offer from someone else in writing, and then go and present it to your manager and say, I got this, and I'm willing to leave unless I get a promotion. Then they'll give you one. It's a really weird way of working. It's just a different world. But I do think that asking is not something that you'll ever be punished for. I think it makes you look. I think it makes you look great. It makes you look like you are ready to take on more responsibility. It makes you look proactive. It makes you look courageous leadership. That's one of CarMax's, forget what you call it, cultural imperatives. So that's good.
I love this question. Michael asked, when you are driven to learn and grow, but you feel like you're taking in so much information on professional development, how do you filter it out? Like, how do you like drill it down? And I totally vibe with that, because I feel like you find all this cool stuff and you're like, I want to learn, and then it can be really overwhelming. So any recommendations on that?
Absolutely. And I totally get that. I feel like I've been saying that now for the last month. But I don't know if it was just me, because I was in the job market and I was looking, and so I was running into all kinds of stuff. But there is a lot of stuff out there. And if you go on LinkedIn or, everybody's an expert on everything. And then, you know, Jeff Gotthelf's book gives you kind of a roadmap for how to do more of the same and create content and push your content out there, and how much should be for free and what platforms, that kind of thing. But there is a lot of noise out there. So going back to that exercise of, you know, the inspiration tank and asking your colleagues, you know, so again, find the people that you admire and you respect. Hopefully you can bring them onto your board of advisors, but ask them what inspires them. What are their sources of information? And I think you'll find that if they are pretty successful, their sources are good ones. And so that might be a good way to help you streamline, you know, or cut through some of the noise that's out there, because there's a lot for sure, especially in this space.
I love that. I think also too, like even just creating, like we like our Kanbans and product, and just creating a list of the resources that you are interested in learning more in, and like just working through them that way as well, and figuring out like what you mentioned, like what's on your backlog versus what you want to do right now. Like what's the most important thing versus maybe something that you're interested in that can wait, right? When you have a little bit more time and to be able to process that information.
Yep. And I think you'll find that you'll always be adding to the backlog, right? I mean, that's the world we live in. And I remember that was a huge discussion at VCU, that we've now entered the time of continuous learning. It used to be that you would go and get your bachelor's and that was enough. And then, you know, for many, you would have to get a master's. And now it really it doesn't stop when you leave university. It's lifelong. For sure.
Cool. I want to see if there's any more. There's probably other questions in here, but this chat is going crazy.
Got one. And I
Okay,
think
you got one? Go ahead.
for one more. Are there any resources you recommend for practicing storytelling and executive presence? And this is from Juan.
Okay. Practicing storytelling and executive presence. Gosh, I'll have to think about that one. I have seen some things out there. Nothing is coming to mind as really, really good content at the moment. Does anybody have any recommendations? Executive presence is a good one, and I think it's come a long way. It used to be that you were sent to Toastmasters, and that's where you began to work on your ability to speak publicly and have that thing called presence. It's hugely important, and it is absolutely a learned skill and something that people just starting out, I think you'll see that if you work on that, it will carry you very far. I can remember when I was in the advertising world, I was told point blank, you will be promoted when, or, you know, yeah, you'll be promoted when you can speak to a large audience and really learn to present well. And it was true. Everybody who kind of rose through the ranks had that quality, and it's absolutely a practiced talent. So I don't know. That's a great question. I'd love to hear from the group if they have any sources, because mine right now is from my inspiration tank, and it's watching Madam Secretary. Teo Leone
Going on in the chat.
Yeah,
What's that?
A couple people are mentioning it's called Dual-track. I don't know what that is, but I'm curious now. I want to go check it out. And then also Michael mentioned Chris Brogan is a really good, and his website is chrisbrogan.com. It's a good place to go for story leading.
Oh yeah, Michael. I know. I remember you have talked about him before. I've seen a few things on LinkedIn. I should make a note of that and put that on the landing page as well. That's a great question.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're going to be wrapping up, but I did just want to remind everyone to please fill out the survey, and we will put it in that wonderful email we're going to send out, which at this point is going to be quite a lengthy email with all this awesome resources. But just as Ashley mentioned, she's going to also have that landing page that's going to have all of this good stuff as well, for you guys to access as well. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to Ashley for presenting today. Thank you to Snag for being our official sponsor. If you would like to sponsor one of these events, please hit us up. We are taking sponsors now as well. Jessica, Travis, do you guys want to say anything to wrap up?
Leave us feedback. We'd love to hear your feedback. Join, become a voice in our community. We love that. And come to our next event, which is with Corgi Bites next month.
Corgi Bites, yes.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to end the call, so you'll all get put back into your desktops or whatever it was you were doing on your device before you joined this awesome session. And we can't wait to see you in September.